Welcome back to another episode of Vitality Vault with Vitality Ventures Group, a production by Vitality Lens. This episode, we're joined by McKenna Zannini. Her story is incredible. She literally went from a cult on the East Coast to Wharton to Wall Street. So much to unpack there. Let's just dive right into it. Empowered women empower women. Take it away, Shannon.
McKenna Zannini, welcome to Vitality Vault. I'm really excited, and as I just said off camera before we started, if there were any things that I can't ask you, and I asked you that because cult.
Yes. Yep.
But you are, before we do that, you're the CEO of Boutique COO, and we'll get to that. You're an amazing entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, love it all day long. But you're from the East Coast.
I am. I know. I'm an East Coaster and West Coaster.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, Dutch country, in kind of the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. And then I ended up going to school in Philly, moved to New York City, did the whole New York City thing for like 6-7 years. And then we got out here 2 years ago.
You know, I'm from New Jersey.
No way. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm from New Jersey. So I moved here. It's going to be 9 years ago next March. But yeah, I'm from New Jersey.
What brought you up here?
Oh, my ex-husband's a pilot for Alaska. He's a captain for Alaska Airlines. Yeah. And so he was like going back and forth. My dog's whining. I'm going to have to kick her out real soon. So we bought a house like 2 doors down from him. I love him. He's a great person. And plus, I think I was like, in my brain, and this coming from the East Coast, the West Coast is like this, like uncharted territory that is like, I'm like, I'm going to be on a farm and I'm going to be a granola chick. Well, no, that's my sister. I never really thought that, but you know what I mean? It's an easier way of life and all that kind of stuff. And it's beautiful here. The weather's still, we're entering the time when I definitely need to find the sun once a month.
I'm 100% with you. When I first moved here and I established primary care doctor, she was like, all right, here's what you got to do. Start taking vitamin D and go on vacation every winter. I was like, hey, the doctor says.
So you said you grew up in Pennsylvania, Dutch. Where?
I did.
Because I know Pennsylvania.
I grew up in Souderton.
I don't know Pennsylvania.
Once you pass Philly, there's really nothing to see. It's just a lot of nothing. So.
Well, my mother was from, she's dead, but my mother was from Carbondale, outside of Scranton. Yeah. So we had a house on Crystal Lake. I'm sure you don't know Crystal Lake. If you do, I would lose my mind. But
I don't know.
Yeah, but kind of near the Ski Mountain, Elk Mountain and stuff. And I spent my youth in the summer in Pennsylvania.
Nice. Okay. Was it near the Poconos?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I know the Poconos, but I don't know it very well.
So, wow. So, I'm just trying to be respectful before I go. You got to tell me about the freaking cult. But, so you lived in the city because, that's what we call it. We don't call it New York. We call it the city, where now I guess there are many drones or aliens or whatever the hell's going on.
I was reading about that last night. I don't know what's going on there.
My friends have been sending me videos for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, even before the news caught it or made maybe this is something, saying, there's drones everywhere. And I was like, whatever. I don't care. And now I'm like, oh, so what are we doing? Yeah, they said every day at night, they're just all over the place.
It's so weird.
Maybe that's something we have to get used to. I don't know, but
yeah.
So you lived in New York. You went to UPenn. Well, is Wharton part of UPenn?
Yeah, it's a business school at Penn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's awesome. My father, when I was very young, used to coach at Drexel University.
Oh yeah.
So we used to go into Philly a lot, and then he moved to Rutgers. I went to Rutgers University.
Okay.
So yeah. Cool. Look at that. I didn't notice a
little connection.
I didn't notice you having an accent, although Pennsylvania people generally don't.
I don't think they do for the most part.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. It's just us weird New Jersey people and New Yorkers.
Yeah, the closer you get to New York, right?
Where in New York did you live?
I lived in Manhattan, all up and down Manhattan.
Hmm.
Um, and then met my husband, well, now husband, and we moved to Brooklyn. And so we lived in Park Slope in Brooklyn for a while.
That's when Brooklyn's nice now,
Yeah.
right?
It's nice. It's nice. I really liked it. I mean, the thing is in New York, it's just hard. Like life is just hard in New York. So it was really fun when I was younger, and then I just kind of got to the point where um
I think it's definitely a young person's game unless you're a gazillionaire.
yes,
But
correct.
even so, I mean, I love New York City, but I loved being able to leave and get on the train and go to New Jersey,
Yes,
you
100%.
know, because it was like that break. And then you go and you're like there because the energy is so high in New York. I mean, coming out of Penn Station and walking outside, I remember like nothing feels like this. And I have yet to go to a city that feels like that.
100%. I think it's unmatched. Even like big cities I've been to, like I just went to Buenos Aires in October and it's huge, but I didn't have the same thing. Like there's something different about New York for
There's
sure.
something different. And so do you miss the bagels being
Ah,
out here?
you
What
know
the
what? I
fuck,
do.
man?
Bagels, yes. Pizza is okay out here. Pasta
Yeah.
is not so great out here, I would say. My
Well,
husband,
you don't have good Italian restaurants like
that's the
the
thing.
yeah.
Yes, my husband is Italian American and grew up like, with the whole big Catholic family at Easter and all of that. And he like laments his lack of like delis, Italian delis here. So
Oh yeah.
it's pretty bad. So
So he's from New York or New Jersey or
he's
where's he
from Rhode
from?
Island.
Oh, we kind of count Rhode Island. Rhode Island's gorgeous.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so
Hmm.
funny. Someone recently asked me, like, oh, where in Rhode Island is he from? And I was like, well, Rhode Island's kind of one place. Like, it's so small.
It's like this big.
Yeah,
It's this big. But it's gorgeous.
it is.
I
It's
I
really
mean, but it's a really freaking small place. But even the whole East Coast is so different because you can just be in like 5 states in one afternoon and go from here to here. You know what I mean?
100%. A hundred
Very
percent.
different states too.
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's the case. And you know what I do miss though? Like, yeah, the food for sure. What I do miss is I miss like people being direct. I like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel like New York people, East Coast people can take it maybe to an extreme sometimes, but I do miss like just
Do
being able
they
to have
though?
a straight conversation.
Right, without the bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, don't like say what you think I want to hear and be nice because that's what you're doing. And
Yep.
then when I turn around, stab me in the back. Fuck that shit.
Yep.
Like the direct is well, I mean, it's the only way to be if you grew up on the East Coast. And then when you venture out, you're like, what are we doing here? You know?
100%.
But then you know all this when you go elsewhere and you realize there's a very different world outside that little kind of bubble. Um, First of all, I always wonder where all the other people are. Like it's very hard to find people of any different color anywhere else, like a melting pot, right? It's you
Yeah.
know, I first moved to Colorado the first place I moved to Colorado, the first time I left New Jersey, I was like, where are all the other people? You know what I mean? Because I wasn't used to that.
Mhm.
I thought it was fascinating. And growing up on the East Coast is definitely an extremely different kind of almost eat or be eaten. There's so many people in such a small area,
Mhm.
but it prepares you for a
100%.
lot. Yeah.
100%.
So
Yeah.
did you go directly from east to west? You came directly out to Oregon?
Yeah, yeah. We came out here. We got married in October 2022, and then we went on our honeymoon, got home, and 2 days later packed up the car and drove out here. So,
What? Okay, so why?
you know, I think a couple things. One is we're both from the East Coast, my husband and I. Originally we had, born and raised, spent our whole life there. And I guess we just felt like we hadn't experienced anything else. Like I think our
Sure.
time in New York was coming to a close for a number of reasons. Life is really hard, life is really expensive. I also kind of got tired of the like the rat race attitude of just I felt
Hmm.
like everyone was like comparing their engagement rings and comparing their
Oh,
comparing vacations,
100%.
the worst. And I was over it. And so I think between that, it's just being like kind of life is hard and expensive and we both work remotely, like it was a chance for us to try something else with kind of like little costs. There's no kids involved, there's no like job changes involved, right? So we were looking for somewhere that was very outdoorsy, very type 2 type of fun. We're big like ski, run, hike, backpack people, and ended up here. So it was totally just like a, well, let's see how it goes, and worst case we go home kind of thing.
Well, it's an adventure. But I also think that if you grow up on the East Coast, you want to go west. And
Yeah.
now my son, who's been here for most of his life, is like he just wants to go to New York.
Really?
So
Aw.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we've taken him to stuff like that. But I think that's probably just human nature, for certain people who want to venture out and have this romanticized idea of, elsewhere.
Totally.
So it's good. So
Totally.
okay, so I can't hold it in any longer. Yeah, okay,
Whole time?
please, the whole time. Ta- Cult? Did you grow up in a real cult?
Mhm. Yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
what's the name of the cult?
Please explain.
Yes.
It's part of the Apostolic Reformation, which you probably have never heard of, and that's for the
Mm-mm.
best. It's basically a really extreme version of Protestantism, sort of twisted into a cult setup. So it's like a super small town, very much like nothing secular was allowed. I mean, the whole thing, I've studied cults a lot since I like realized that's what I was in. And the whole thing about cults is like us versus them. And so it's very much like everybody else is like evil and like sinful, and you can't listen to any music that's like not based in this like particular belief system. And so it's I mean, my family would literally go to like Walmart and like try to convert people into the cult. Like it was crazy. Which at the time, I mean, you're a kid, you don't know
Well,
any.
you don't know any different. Was the
Yeah.
whole town a cult?
Yeah, like the whole community. Yeah. And it's kind of based in, people think like, oh, Amish, like middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, which it's kind of like one step off of that, like Amish plus electricity, like more
Okay.
Dutch Mennonite kind of like vibes. But yeah, it was really intense. And, there's also a lot of abuse, which is a very common thing in cult, communities.
Right.
And, I left when I was 17. I went to school, put myself through school. So yeah, it
So
was
how, at what point, because I always wondered this, if you're raised in a cult and your family's there and your parents are there, so you're not on your own going, to this dude, where it's
totally,
so obvious. At what point do you go, oh, this is not normal?
totally.
Do you have that realization at some point?
It's funny, I have people ask me this fairly regularly, actually, but I don't really like it's not a clear memory of like this one time is when I realize. I think it's really a culmination
Like a
where,
slow roll where you're like,
yeah, like I remember sitting in church when I was like, I don't know, it must have been like 5, 6, 7, like in that age range, and just being like, this is wrong, like something feels wrong about this. And I think as I got older, um, I didn't have a lot of like this versus that. Like I didn't have any normal to compare to necessarily, but I just something felt really wrong. And I think probably the level of like abuse and trauma is part of that, where it gives you the feeling of like, okay, this doesn't feel right to me. And so, I mean, you can imagine the culture shock when like that's all you've ever known. And
so could you watch TV or did you have computers and things like that?
we did, but it was all like you could only watch like secular or not secular,
Okay.
like religious related content. And so it was very highly like policed about what you're consuming. So like a lot of, even to this day, I haven't seen like a lot of popular movies and TV. My husband is on a mission to show me, like, we watched all of the Harry Potter movies. Now we're watching The Wire. Like we, I just like haven't, I just missed
Well,
18
you
or
right,
17 years, you know?
right. So how do you, and so generally, um, people don't leave that area and go off to college. So how do you do that? I mean, that's a huge deal. And when you do that, does your family, all we think about college, do they say, no, we can't talk to you anymore. You're out of the family.
Yeah. It was a really long process of trying to figure out like what things looked like. Like, so once I got into college, I mean, I think there is some level of like, I don't know, pride in a way from my family or from my community that like I got into this school that, most people um in my town, like I was the first one to ever go to an Ivy League school. And so in the area. And so I think people in a way were like impressed in a weird way, but at the same time, that was definitely the beginning of the end for me and my family's relationship. I think there was this idea of like, well, school made you want to leave us. And it was actually the reverse. It was like school, like I had wanted to leave for a long time. You just can't say that safely, And so
Right.
once I left, I was like, oh, I'm out, like I'm out of here. But there was a long process of probably like 8 years, 7, 8 years of me trying to figure out what does this mean for me and my family's relationship, because I don't think it's anyone's first choice to not be in contact with their family.
No, that's choosing to almost be alone in the world, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
whatever issues you have with your family, and I've had issues with my brother, my sister, whatever, I know they're still there. You know what I mean? If like I need to hide a body, not that that's going to happen, but if I need to hide a body, like I
Yeah,
can be like, okay, we got a problem. And I know they'd
totally.
be there. So that's it's yeah,
Yeah.
that's feeling alone like that is kind of what happened.
Yeah. Especially when you're so young. Like I just had really and I was young age-wise, but I think I was also young in
Well,
terms
you're
of
immature. You didn't have all the
experience.
experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas like my husband was, like living a more normal life. I didn't know him at the time, but he had experience like being in a relationship and like drinking and whatever and like
Right.
that kind of stuff. And I had never experienced any of that before. And so it's very jarring. Yeah.
What a so did you go to UPenn first and or you went, how did that work?
Yeah. So I went to Penn. I studied in Wharton at Penn. So I studied business.
Hmm.
Um, and that also was a crazy
Was
concept. I
that
mean,
oh yeah. So you I mean, that's a huge change.
yeah, huge
I
change. I remember like showing up and people were like buying groceries, going out to dinner on their dad's credit card. And I was like, what is happening right now? People were like buying alcohol, people were going out to parties, people were like I was like, what is happening? It was just such a drastic change from what I had ever experienced. And so it was a big change. Uh,
was it exciting though too?
I
Or
don't
was
think
it
I
just
was excited.
terrifying?
I think I
Okay.
was just scared at the time.
But you stayed. You didn't leave.
No, I mean, to me, that was my ticket out because if I did well and got a good job, did well in school, I was free, like then I was free and I was able to like support myself and not be financially dependent on anyone. And it felt to me like the ticket to freedom. And so I just kept my head down. Like I worked 4 or 5 jobs at a time. I literally woke up and either studied or worked all day, every day, 7 days a week for 4 years. And I did really well and ended up on Wall Street. But you know what? I sometimes I think get jealous or sad when I think about people who have like the college experience. Like my husband had like a group of friends and they would go on
Yeah.
spring break trips and like normal people.
Right.
But I just didn't have that luxury. And so, that's something that I feel like I missed out on, but I just didn't have the choice at the time.
Well, it sounds like you missed out on that for your childhood as well, that normal kind of, freedom, making mistakes, doing things you shouldn't do that,
Totally.
seem huge then, but you're a kid, it doesn't matter. You
Totally.
going? She can't make up her mind. Wow. That's have you done that at all? Have you ever been like, you know what, I'm gonna take a fucking year and do some shit?
No, I have not. I do think at some point I will do like more just like bucket list stuff. I honestly it's like the small things. Like I've never sounds so silly. I've never seen The Godfather. I'm like, I'm married to an Italian American person. I feel like I should see The Godfather. Just stuff like
Yes,
that. Like,
yeah. Godfather 2 is better though. That's just
is
my
it?
opinion.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Ask your husband. He might be like, it's close.
Yeah, I that's really that kind of stuff I want to experience. Like I've gotten to do a lot of traveling and have a really awesome marriage and friends and
But it's
stuff.
it's
So
the little tiny. Well, yeah, you went from a cult to Philly to New York. I mean, you fast tracked that real
yeah,
fast.
that
A
was
lot
a
of
good.
people could, that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
So
But
so now you get into Wall Street, and were you the typical Wall Street person?
no, it was totally not on purpose. I don't know. I feel like my this whole stage of my life, like Wharton Wall Street stage, was not on purpose, which I realize is a very privileged position to be in.
Mhm.
That I was able to do these things. But like, I think about people who like grow up and their parents from what the time they're little are like, you're gonna go to Wharton, you're gonna end up on Wall Street and be an investment banker. Like I didn't even barely know what job I had taken, and it was really fun. I mean, it was really fun. I learned a lot. It was really fast paced. I was like there during Brexit and there during the Spotify IPO. Like all of these things were so fun, especially at that age and being like energetic and young. Um, and I think it comes obviously with all of the bad stuff too of, there was very few women. There obviously isn't Wall Street's not known for its culture. So I think
No,
there's a lot of
no. Yeah.
issues too,
Yeah,
but
it's the
it was a great.
finance bros. Yeah, I grew up with them. My father was a lacrosse coach. I think half of them went into Wall Street after that.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah, so no, it's definitely, you watch Wolf of Wall Street and people think, and I'm like, oh no, it's pretty much like that, or any
It's
of those
real.
movies. Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's just what it is. So,
Yeah.
and how long were you in Wall Street?
I was there like almost 5 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It was honestly it was a great experience. I did really well. I like learned a lot of stuff. But then I just was kind of done with the culture and being the only woman and just I
Did
don't know.
you watch the Martha Stewart documentary?
No, should
Oh
I?
my gosh, yes, you should, because she got married, and she's like, we're talking, she's older than me.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was she started in Wall Street, brilliant woman, started in Wall Street, and she was the only woman.
Yeah.
And did really amazing, but the culture, she was like, yeah, this is not gonna work for me,
Yeah.
absolutely watch it. It's
I
fascinating.
I
Fascinating.
totally will.
She got
Yeah.
she got so screwed over, that woman. Oh my God. You'll see. So
Okay.
then yeah, it's so good. So then you're Wall Street, and that's where you met your husband?
That's where I met my husband. Yeah, I was a
Okay.
trader and he was a trader and we traded
Hmm.
against each other
Okay.
for 2 years. Completely platonic, just like work relationship. And I think he tells me now he was scared of me a little bit. I think I was kind of a aggressive trading opponent. Um, and then I was going to leave my job. We both had ended up out of relationships, um, kind of actually around the same time. And I was hitting on him unsuccessfully. And my husband had been in only one relationship. He was in a 10-year relationship since high school. And he's just like a really nice guy, really good guy. And so I
Mhm,
think I don't know, he's not really like a ladies' man kind of guy, which I think is
mhm.
the best, but um he was not picking up what I was putting down. So I went in resorted to my last resort, which was I had just gotten a puppy. And so I invited him over to meet my puppy. And 2 weeks
Oh,
later,
that's perfect.
yeah, it worked. We were dating 2 weeks
Of
later.
course. Wow. And then and now is he your first serious relationship?
No, I had been
Okay.
in two serious relationships, one in college, one after college. Um, but he was honestly, I think, my first relationship where I feel like it was like really good and like really healthy. Like in college, I
Mm,
feel like I was like a kid, which is fine. You have relationships as kids and you figure it out, but I think it just wasn't going to be like my forever relationship.
right.
Um, and then I had kind of like a not as great relationship after in New York. And so, being with my husband has been so nice because I don't know your experience, but like for me, being a super ambitious woman, I think for a lot of men, that's very intimidating. And
I have been told I'm intimidating most of my life.
yeah,
Yes.
it's
Right. And
so
I'm a coach's daughter and I'm like my dad. So, I, you know, and because I grew up in the, like 80s and 90s, it was very different for women then. So it was, I
yeah,
remember being told, and my parents are wonderful people, were wonderful people. They're not with us anymore, but like to be like, just calm down a little, Shannon, try not to be a bitch or act like, and I would try, but you really can't hide who you are, you know what I mean? Nor should you. And the
yeah,
people who, like you said, your husband picked it up, or eventually it took him a little while. You,
mhm.
you can learn to be respectful and you can learn to, you mature as you get older and you learn those things, but you're still who you are.
Totally,
So,
totally.
and that's good. That's a good thing. So, if other people find it intimidating, that's really on them.
Them problem. That's what I always say. It's a them problem.
Yes, it's a them problem. Yeah, it's not a me. Well, that's okay. So now you're running an agency, digital marketing agency in Salem. Were you doing that before you moved out here? Were you doing that on the East Coast?
Yeah, so after Wall Street, I worked in tech, mostly in like a business operations capacity. So my background is very much like growing and scaling things. And I was freelancing a lot of that time because again, like, I put myself through school, I had student loans. I still have student loans I'm paying off. And so, I think it's just a survival thing of like you just
Right.
hustle. East
You
Coast is
hustle.
there's the hustle,
No,
right?
you get up and you freaking hustle. You don't have
Yeah,
money, you figure it out. You hustle, hustle. That's what you do. Yeah.
exactly. So I did that and yeah, I was freelancing for a lot of the time. And then when we moved out here, we bought a house and I was like, oh, like we could use a little extra cash, like, recoup some of what we paid for the down payment, whatever. And so I started kind of ramping up my freelance work again a little bit more and got to the point where I was just overwhelmed. And so I hired one or two people thinking, just I'll contract some of this out and help me, just take care of the work. And then one thing led to another. And now I have a full-fledged agency. So
Yes, you do. Yeah, you do. Now, all women.
not all, but it's very women heavy.
Is
Yeah.
that a conscious choice, or it just kind of you followed the path that opened up in front of you?
It's honestly just been it just kind of happened like that, and I think we tend to attract women, both clients and team, I think for me, a lot of what's made us successful has been being, like being approachable and being really kick ass at what we do and producing really great results, but not condescending you in the process. And I
Right.
think that in an agency setting, that's actually really uncommon in my experience, where like people wear fancy suits and then use all these words you don't know. And then as a client, you feel intimidated and you feel vulnerable and condescended. And I think we strike that balance of like, we'll meet you where you are. We'll like talk to you in a way that kind of like makes sense to you. We're not going to like make you feel bad for where you're coming, at this from. And at the same time, we're going to give you the best quality advice and results. So I think that's really tended to attract a lot of women clients for sure.
Do you find, because I get this a lot where our women, and they could be strong, like whatever they're doing, they're starting their own business, they're taking risks, they're juggling family, and then they'll apologize for not knowing. Like, I'm really sorry, I'm not a good businesswoman. Like, first of all, and I tell my daughter this, and lots of people, stop apologizing.
Hmm.
Why? What are you apologizing for? Stop it. But have you noticed that?
Oh my God,
Um,
all the time. All
right?
the
It's like,
time. I also find that they tend to be, yeah, they're like apologetic before you even like get in and see anything. They're like, oh, well, I'm just like, I don't want you to judge me for how I'm running the business. I'm like, girl, that's like my job. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to help take you from where you are to the next level. And that's not judging. That's just like meeting you where you are and walking that path with you, you know? But it totally see people be like apologetic in advance.
because they're not perfect in everything. You know,
Mhm.
I think maybe as women, we feel like, because we are good multitaskers,
Yeah.
it's just what we can do for whatever reason. It's just how we are. But, dropping a ball is like, oh, it's like a stab in the heart because you want to do the best. And we have to give ourselves a break. I mean, I do the same thing all day, every day. But there's also a piece where I like doing all that. I don't know if you're like that. It's like you're
The
like,
same
oh
way.
yeah, I can. Yeah, I can watch, you know?
Really. I I joke like I'm never gonna retire. Just I'll always be doing something, you know. I just think there's something about like working and helping and other business owners and stuff. There's something like addictive about it, to be honest.
100%. I 100% agree with you. So, yeah, and we have a lot of women who are in different stages of their business. Some very
Mhm.
successful, and then they're expanding, and some just starting out.
Mhm.
So and I always tell the people I consult with, 2 years you're not going to make money. 2 years you're not going to make money, because that's generally the rule. Not that there's a hard and fast rule, but you also want to set those expectations really low, so then people are financially prepared.
Totally.
Not that they're not going to be, it's not just like, oh, I'm going to open a business and I'll be rich kind of thing.
Mhm.
But you seem to have bucked that 2-year rule. And I don't know if you know how you did it or if you just kind of follow. Sometimes they say this is the way the path is going, following it, as opposed to this was my business plan. This is where I'm going, and I'm hard and fast here, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You know, I think what's happened is a combination of things. One is I think there's always an element of just like luck, you know, like you just
Mhm.
kind of end up in the right place at the right time. Um, the economy is doing one thing or the other, right? There's always just like things you can't control. But I think I'm someone who like I jump before I'm ready.
Your
And
action bias.
yes, way
Me
action
too.
bias. And if I'm not ready, if I feel like I'm like ready enough to jump, but I'm scared to jump, I force someone else to push me. You know? And that's how we've made a lot of changes and a lot of like additions and improvements and growth and new offerings. And a lot of it is just like, I was like, I don't know that I feel super confident and ready to do this, but I know that we can handle it and I'll just figure it out once the ball is rolling, I'll figure it out. And I think that that holds up so many business owners that I talk to is they think about things so hard, which is obviously being thoughtful is a good thing, but you can totally overthink yourself into oblivion and then you never do anything. And
If you wait for the right time is
there's
now,
no
right?
time.
There's
Yeah.
no time, because like you said, you can't control the external. You can't control the economy. You can't control the environment. You can't control your neighbor. You can't
Mm-mm.
control how people act, what they say, what they do. So the planning is fine to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But my Roddy, the Russian, I call him the Russian. You don't know the Russian, but he's not Russian. It doesn't matter. Um, he's like, oh, you're so action bias for action. That's what he calls. You're biased for action. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Doesn't always work,
Totally.
but the waiting, and I know I've talked to a lot of people who are like, well, when we get this all ready, Then we're going to do this. But you can get all that ready and the world will continue on. The world will change. AI will change how people work and, everything will happen. And then what?
100%.
Right? So you think just that forward bias for action, taking risks, not being afraid is normal. So
100%.
do it while you're afraid as opposed to not doing it.
And if you notice, I actually did this. I had two things I wanted to launch in the beginning of like going into this year. And I felt like I was stalling on them, which is actually really uncommon for me. Usually I'm like, we'll just jump and see what happens. Like I trust myself to be able to figure it out. And these two things I think I was just intimidated. And so I went to my GM and I said, hey, like, I need you to just do this. And I need, like push me basically. And so I think if you realize that you're procrastinating or that you are stalling, have someone else
Tell someone to push you.
accountability. Yeah. Yeah.
So is your GM, is she an opposite personality where she's like you know what I mean?
It's funny, like they're actually really similar in that like they're super process oriented, but I think it's just when you're emotionally attached just to like an idea or to an initiative, like I have a harder time launching something that I'm like, oh, people are gonna like it, or I don't know, like is it gonna do
I think an
well?
emotional attachment to not just a process, and this is probably going to sound cold or whatever, but to your business in general can be very dangerous.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you can figure out a way to separate the emotion out from your business, and your business is tasks, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, whatever, and not be attached to it, you can grow. It's very difficult to grow if it becomes your child, because then if you want to grow, well, you need a team. You may need investors, which means you have to give up a percentage, which means you have to, and people can't really make that leap. A lot of people. And when we see female entrepreneurs, and I don't know if women have a more difficult time with this, but I would assume we might, become more emotionally attached to businesses than men. I don't know. Maybe that's a freaking statement that's not true, but it feels that way.
No, I think it is true. I think it's definitely true.
But what happens is then, as owners, you limit yourself.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think also if you get attached, I've found this as I've grown, like if you get attached to how other people perceive you too. And I think that is something that women tend to do a lot, is like people please. And
they want to be liked.
Yeah, you want to be liked. And the thing is, if you're gonna build something big enough, you're gonna have people who don't like you. Even if you're like the best person, you always do it right, all of it.
Let's talk about that. The bigger you get, the more haters you get.
Yes.
And whether not because you're necessarily doing something wrong, but your success or your perceived success or what people are seeing, I think people become it. Maybe they make it a reflection of what they feel their inadequacies are, even if they don't have them. Totally. And so then people can be nasty and say nasty things and make up lies. They do it all the time.
Totally.
And the bigger you get, if you're worried about someone liking you, first of all, you can be the greatest human being alive. You're going to have people who don't freaking like you. It's how it works.
100%. Yes.
So already you lose that battle. So you might as well do what you want to do and not worry about them. Easier said than done. Okay? It's very easy to say that.
100%.
It's hard. It's not that difficult to do. I think it's almost more of a habit where you have to get it out of your head. So if you hear someone trash talking you or saying nasty things or whatever, that can consume you, or you can go, all right, now I got to move on.
Yeah.
Right. But you have to talk yourself out of it almost.
100%. I think there's that duality of like, if someone says something mean about me, I'm a very like keep my side of the street clean kind of person. Like I really want to always do the right thing. And I if someone says something mean about me, like I have a moment of like honestly, I have a moment of like
You're human,
that
of course.
sucks, you know?
Like,
But
why would they do that? That's not true. That's not
it's not
nice.
true. Like I
Hmm.
did my bet, like, people misperceive things or whatever.
Hmm.
I think I have a moment of like, oh my God, like that hurts. And then I have to be like, okay, well, I know that what I'm happy the choice I made. I know that I'm never going to be able to please everyone. And like you said, the more people, like the bigger your platform, the more people who see your work and what you do and your point of view, there's going to be more people by definition who just don't like you. And that I think I just have learned to accept.
Yeah, I think you have to, and I think if you are someone who is uh, such a people pleaser, or your motivation and is because you want to be loved more, whatever reason, we all have gone through traumatic things in our life, up every single freaking person. But if you're leaning on those dopamine hits of likes and how many views this got and all that kind of stuff, I don't care at all about any of that shit.
Mhm.
Um, but if that's the thing that's feeding you, you're gonna have a tough time,
Totally. Totally.
you know, because first of all, it's not real. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Ultimately, also, and I would love your opinion on this, because I social media is fine, but it does not. I don't care if I get one view or a million views. Like, it doesn't matter to me whatsoever, because I also know it doesn't affect my business growth,
Hmm.
because it's a long game as opposed to right here a short game. Um, Not that a million views wouldn't help the business. I
Of
don't know
course.
if it would, though. Would it?
Yeah.
Would it? I don't know.
Yeah. Depends on who's
Dep-
viewing, I guess, right?
Depends upon who's doing it. Depends upon what your goals are, as right
Hmm.
in business. Um, so so things like that, because you're running a digital marketing company, do you find that that's a pressure for you, for your clients? Like, what do you do about that kind of stuff?
Well, it happens so often. It's one of those things where sometimes I think people have to be burned to realize what they actually want because people will come to us all the time. I want 50,000 followers by next month. And we'll be
Mhm.
like, okay, well, what kind of ad budget do you have? Because that is not going to happen organically, right? And so I think people, there's all these marketing firms out there who say, oh, if you just pay for my $5,000 program, if you
Oh,
just do my
whatever.
one tip, you're going to make it. And do you know what they do? It's like bots followers. Like that's not getting you any
Right.
sales. It's just making your ego feel better because you have more followers on your profile, right? And so we have that conversation a lot. And honestly, we just tell people the truth. Like, hey, what are your goals with socials? And most of their goal, it's like establish my brand more, get more sales, have a place where people can learn about us, right? Like typical things for socials. And someone like basically buying you bot followers isn't gonna accomplish those goals for you.
It's going to do nothing. It's going to do nothing.
Yeah. So, and some people like I've lost deals because of that because we say, "Hey, like that's not our style. We're not just going to like hack you into followers," and people don't like it and so they don't work with us and that's okay.
That's okay. Right. And realistically, if the goal is to have millions of followers, it wouldn't you think it's up to that person to be entertaining enough where people want to watch them,
Well, that's
right?
the other thing. Like if
It's
you
like, yeah, you're not that person, or you
100
haven't tapped into you enough to be that person, because they see, I don't know, anybody and try to act like them because they want that. It's like, just you'll be much better if you're just you, first of all.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. Well, and it's the same thing if you're dealing with a product-based business or a service-based
Hmm.
business. If you're doing a bad job at whatever product or offering you have, and you're doing bad customer service, you're not giving a good result, then ultimately like no amount of social media help is going to help your business, right? So like you kind of have to have the foundations, right, of like the margins being good, the product being good, having a good client experience, all of those things. And marketing's not going to do shit on top of that if you
No,
don't have anything
no.
to offer on the baseline.
Well, it's a like a recipe. You have to have all the ingredients there to even be in the house to even begin to bake the
Yeah.
cake, you know? And
Yep.
it still could turn out like shit, you know? And then you try again. And that's the other thing. You have to sometimes keep trying
Yep.
because,
100%.
you know, that's why I think bias for action is good because you can work on a project, get it out. What you think is great, maybe other people aren't interested in.
Just try
So you
it.
might as well get it out there and figure out how to remix it or do what you need to do to, listen to the clients.
Mhm.
Because it's about the clients, what they want, not about what you want to put out there.
100%. Well, and I
Right?
think that's where being okay failing is is something that you have to be just like prepared for, right? Of like if
I
you put
wish there
something
was a
out there,
different word than failure. Because I
yeah,
think, like, you know what? Like, if we could repackage it into a different word where you're going to be doing these things, they're not fail. It's just this step along the road. You know what I mean?
totally.
Failure, people have such failure problems. So, okay. If someone, so you ramped up quick, right? You
Yeah.
just kept on
Yeah.
bias for action, following the where it takes you.
Yeah.
Um, if someone's starting today, any kind of business, what do you think? And there's no one answer for any human being. I understand this. There's no one answer for business, but the world is changing a lot because of AI, right? I'm here for it. It's it's very chaotic now in the AI world. This company trying to beat this company, trying to beat this company. I did get on Sora today though,
Did
and
you?
I freaking did, and I created a video and I was pretty disappointed in it, but I have to probably improve my prompts.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I did get on this morning. Um, what do you, I'm interested to see, like, what do you think is going to happen? I know the marketers are really into AI now, and I don't know if the rest of the world has caught up or even cares yet, but I think the world's going to be very different in the next year or two because of
I
AI.
think so too. I think so too. I think that ultimately there's something different about human interaction that will never be replaceable. And so these people who are like, all the jobs are going to be taken by AI, I just don't think that's true.
I
However,
agree with you.
AI is so useful if you use it in ways that make your life more efficient, if you teach it more about you and your business and the way that you like approach things, right? If you take the time to invest in it, it can help you so much. And so I think that people where I see them saying like AI is like a cheat code. Like, oh, I don't have to blog because I'm just going to ask my AI to write it for me and I'm just going to like copy paste a post,
No,
right? That is never going to work. What
no.
I do think will work is when you take AI and you like amplify the human potential of you, of your team, of your business with AI. I think that's really where things can change a lot.
I I 100% agree with you about the blog. Now, it will help you get out something quicker
Yeah.
because I use AI or Chad, as I like to call him, because he's my pretend AI boyfriend. And then Claude's my side piece when Chad goes down.
Okay.
Yeah. But even the like conversations, like I want to write a post about this. This is what I'm thinking. Do you have anything to add to it? That's
Right.
kind of right. And then sometimes it comes back with bullshit. Like, I don't know if you've had this, but comes back with like quotes. And I've asked, are these quotes real? Oh, no, no, these are just examples. I'm like, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
full of shit. So
100%.
yeah, so it's interesting. Well, I want to go reverse this back in time. Do you talk to your family now?
I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have siblings?
I do. I have three siblings.
Oh my goodness.
And they're all still like in it with my family. So
Are they
yeah,
adults? Or yeah,
sucks.
yeah. Are they adults or younger?
They are, I mean, they're all adults now. Yeah, the youngest is 20, 21. So, I mean, borderline adult for a boy, I guess. But
Hmm.
yeah, they are. So, my hope, people always ask, like, would you, if your parents came around, would would the door be open? And to me, like the door will always be open. They're my family, I don't know, like I genuinely think that they did the best that they could and they were just super, super brainwashed. That being said, like I think there would have to be a material change in the way that they related to me. And like, I think there would have to at least be an agreement to like agree to disagree, which is not something in their current belief system that's like allowed, is to like agree to disagree. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we'll see. My hope in my best case scenario, like one or two of my siblings gets out, but I just,
Right. Well, I mean, they have what you didn't have. They have someone on the outside that if they made that choice that they could contact, and so they have help.
yeah,
Whether they ask for it or not, it's there. You didn't have that.
yeah,
So
no,
what you did is remarkably strong, and I can imagine even people within that cult or any cult, the fear of going off on your own and what's going to happen in this scary world that you've been told is very scary. I mean, that's a very brave thing to do.
thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's super scary. And yeah, it's my hope. I mean, every time I have spoken with them, I've said, hey, like this is, you're I'm here if you want to come visit, if you want to, whatever, if you want to be around. But I think we'll
You
see.
find it easier to be on the other side of the country, away, as opposed to being close.
It's one of those things where like maybe grass is greener. Like I don't know that it's ever easy. Like it's a kind of grief that
It
it's
is grief. It's a loss. It's a huge loss.
it's a loss and it's a loss that I have to choose every day. And I think that's different than it being like a finite loss where it's like it's a loss that happens and as time goes on, you heal from that and you process it. I think it's something that just every day I could go back. I could call them. I could, right? Like I could do any of these things and I don't. And I think that like choosing every day is like just the worst type of like death by a thousand cuts kind of grief.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, my parents are gone and I miss them, but they're not coming back.
Mm.
They're not in New Jersey. They're not in Pennsylvania. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's there's I mean, yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. It's just a
Wow.
different kind of grief. And I think like when I find it's funny, like when you ask like, oh, can I ask you about this? I think over time, I've become more and more open about it because I've realized as I've told people about my story and my background, people tell me about theirs. And rarely is that also having been in a cult, right? Like that's not a common experience. But I have had people tell me about their parents being addicts, their parents passing away, like having a really broken, like really nasty divorce that they lived through with their parents, right? Like losing a child, losing a friend, being adopted. Like there's just like so many different life experiences and this like bullshit, like two heterosexual parents with the kids who are super happy and everyone's like sitcom level perfect. Like it's not real. How
No,
many people do you
it's
know who
not
has
real.
that? It's not real. And so
No.
like let's just fucking sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to curse, but like let's just like stop pretending and let's just be honest about like what's actually going on. And I think especially around the holidays, a lot of people have like struggles when it comes to family and friends and like, grief of different kinds and family issues of different kinds. And so my hope is that by being more open about my story, that other people feel more comfortable and not as alone that like they don't have the perfect family, quote unquote.
Yeah, nobody has a perfect family. And life is
No.
messy, and being a human being is traumatic, and it has good days and bad days, and that's just how it goes. And
Yeah.
there's no fair, and there's no you're entitled to this, and everybody else has it great, and you have the parents that you have the siblings that you have. It They may not be what act the way you want or whatever it is, and then there's a generational learning. My father was better than his father kind of thing and tried to do better. And well, so that's what, we don't get practice being people. We don't get practice being 21 or 25, so we're all just going through this together. As you get older, you get through experiences, so you do learn more, but there's a lot of experiences that can happen to you in this world. So, it almost is, the longer you're here, the more shit you go through, but also the more good stuff too.
100%.
So, I think when you're in your, how old are you, McKenna?
I'm 28.
Okay. But you've been through, you have a different experience. I know you said you had the immaturity because you were in the cult, but then you probably leveled up 700 years after that when you had to go through everything. So, every day we wake up, say, here we go, let's go, do the best we can, wake up, start grinding, and, deal with what you can, but you can't control the outside world. You can only control
100%.
the brain. Well, I really appreciate you talking to me about all that. I have been fascinated by cults. I used to say I want to start a cult, but a nice cult, but a nice cult.
A nice one, a positive one.
Yeah. I think they all start out that way, though, don't they? And then they veer off. But I appreciate you sharing that with me. And you're a pretty cool chick.
Thank you.
So East Coast on the West Coast. So there we go.
Oh, power to us. Thank you for having me. We will share the links to your company and anything else you want to share. And I appreciate talking to you. You too. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye, my dear.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found McKenna's story inspiring, as I'm sure we all did, you can follow it along. I'll have all of her socials linked below. Also, a reminder to follow Vitality Ventures Group on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. Everything you're going to need will always be linked below in the description. Also, remember to subscribe to our podcast, Vitality Vault, here on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whichever one you use. And even if you have a moment, it would be awesome if you left us a review. Let us know how we're doing, or if there's any guests that you'd like to be on the podcast, follow the link to my website, and there's a forum. Have them fill it out, and we would love to have them as a guest on the Vault. Thanks again from Vitality Ventures Group. How are you using your power?
We're putting ads in these things. If you are struggling, if you're a small business owner, or you want to start up your own business and you don't know where to begin, and it is confusing out there, Vitality Ventures Group works with small business owners all throughout the country. Shoot us an email. What's the email, Maddie?
hello@vitalityventuresgroup.
hello@vitalityventuresgroup.com. We can help answer your questions. Every consultation is free in the beginning, so we can just chat with you. Or if you have a business and you don't know how to grow to the next level, we can work on that with you as well. So vitalityventuresgroup.com, hello@vitalityventuresgroup, and we'll talk to you soon.
Follow us on Instagram.
Oh, Maddie says follow us on Instagram at Vitality Ventures Group.
I'm Maddie. I am the one behind everything with the video, the sound, the photos, production, uploading. Is there anything else?
Maddie is our producer, our media producer.
I do everything on the back end, so it's kind of cool to have an opportunity now to be up front. But let's see, you can follow me on Instagram, Vitality Lens, and then also you can find me on LinkedIn, Maddie Riley.